Hi, I am Anna Martin, and this is the Flex podcast. So, last week I did a podcast on resistance training. So, I thought it was only fair that we talk about cardio today. So, if this is the first podcast of mine that you've listened to, I am going to harp on about cardio now, but that isn't because I don't think you should be doing resistance training. This is just to explain it a bit more and to encourage people to get involved in a way that works for them. But 100% you should still be doing as much resistance training as you can fit in a week. So ideally like 2 to 3 resistance sessions a week. However, on the topic of cardio, it's basically anything that gets your pulse rate up. And that literally anything. So running, swimming, dance, fitness, bit of boxing, um, playing a sport, maybe football, some tennis, whatever, anything that increases your pulse rate. So cardio is really important for the health of your heart and lungs to make sure it's strong, functions well, that you live a lovely long life because your heart and lungs are so healthy. Now, your resistance training is going to be so there's elements of your pulse rate increasing in that, but its predominant function is your muscle tissue so that we maintain our muscle mass as we age, so we can move well and so we can make the most of the things that we want to do as we get older, especially. So the two together work really well hand in hand. So it isn't a case of doing one or the other, it is a case of doing both, which I realise time wise can feel a bit hectic. But as you know, if you're on any of my flex programs, we split it up so that you can fit it into a week, even just doing 20-minute resistance stress, 3 20-minute resistance sessions a week, and then a couple of cardios, get them in there. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to make a move to get things started so that we can then adapt them later. If we don't get started, we can't do any adapting or any trying to make things fit a bit longer in or make things work better for us. If we haven't started, we're not able to do that second part of it. So let's do what we can, fit in what we can. And as our life changes and maybe our time commitments change, we might be able to fit a bit more in down the road, which is especially true of people that are raising a young family. So at the moment, you're running around after everyone. But in a few years' time, that might decrease a little bit as they don't need as many lifts and they're getting the bus to and from school and stuff like that. Things change, but if we haven't got that base layer in there, it makes it much harder for us to start later on. So just get in there, get moving in a way that works for you, and then we can fiddle with it later on. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was how you can make your dance fitness specifically, but any cardio work for you. And with a cardio workout, basically you get out what you put in. So if you're quite fit and healthy and you go for a real slow walk, you can imagine that you're probably not getting a ton of cardiovascular benefits from that. In terms of it's not going to increase your pulse rate that much, it's not very taxing for you, it's not challenging you in any way. So if you're relatively fit, something that's much easier for you isn't going to count towards like a cardio workout. You're going to need quite a brisk walk or something much more intense, like doing a class or going for a run or something like that. But when we first start, if our fitness level is relatively low, virtually anything we do is going to challenge our heart and lungs to keep up with it. So it might be that if you're starting from quite a low fitness level, you've got to be realistic in that you're going to start with walking and gradually build up your fitness to a point where maybe you can go and join in something else or start playing a sport. So you have to be realistic in terms of level. But if we are doing maybe a class or maybe we're jogging or whatever it is, we're going for a run, maybe we are not really sure how we're working or we're not really getting particularly glowy when we do it. We don't feel like it's super challenging. And when that happens, we have to ask ourselves, how much effort are we actually putting in? Because that's going to be the thing that dictates how much we're getting out of it. So, for example, I'm going to use dance fitness because it's my special area of expertise. But for example, when you're doing a dance fitness choreography, it is harder to get a workout out of it when you're just starting, or if you are not a person who likes to put large amounts of physical effort into things. I was saying that because when you first start, it's harder to follow because you don't know all the moves and stuff like that. So therefore you're not able to work as hard because you can't tell what's coming next. And you spend most of your time trying to work out the moves. And that is absolutely normal. And that can be something that puts people off from doing things like an exercise class because you might think, well, I feel like I'm just going to go. I'm not going to know the moves. I'm going to really struggle to keep up. I'm going to feel like a wally. Well, why would you feel like a wally? Because no one ever did anything the first time and was great at it. And everyone knows that who's already doing it because they already found it harder when they first started. Tim Henman didn't get given a tennis racket at 35 and become a professional tennis player. He had to play for 3 decades of his life to get to this point where he was top tier professional. Now, we're not talking about being a professional dance fitnesser. We're just talking about getting a workout from it. But you can't get good at something unless you put the reps in. And it's the same with doing resistance training or Pilates or yoga or anything like that. You can't be a professional at it the first time you go, and you just have to accept it. No one is looking at you if you get it wrong, apart from me, because I'm at the front and that's my job. But no one is looking at you who's behind you or around you because they are trying to watch me so that they know what they're doing. They're not looking at anyone else apart from to make sure they're not going to bump into anyone. They're only focusing on what they're doing and what the instructor's doing. The instructor is looking at everyone to see how they're getting on so they know how to change the choreography, or they know if they need to repeat something, or they know if maybe they're going to do low impact because they've noticed that someone isn't jumping as much. Maybe they're not feeling so good today, they're not feeling as fresh, so they might do it lower impact with them. We are constantly looking around to monitor the class. So unfortunately for you, we do have to look at you, but that's our job. It's a bit like a massage therapist touching a body. It's their job. They don't care. Um, the person who's going thinks, oh no, I'm naked, and they're going to look at me. Well, they're not naked, but you know what I mean. They're going to look at me and maybe they think, oh no, has her skin's not great or whatever. They're not. They're trying to work out where you're in pain, where they can help. Does this move naturally? What can I do about this? They're not thinking about any of the things that you're worrying about. They're worrying about doing their job, and it's exactly the same for me. I'm not worrying if whether you look like a ballroom dancer when you're doing it or not. I'm looking around to see that the majority of people are keeping up. Do I need to change it? Do I need to check on someone? Like, do I need to do first aid? Has someone's shoelaces come undone? Loads of different things all at the same time. We're doing that. That's our job, to constantly assess what's going on. So please don't think that anyone is ever looking at you. But when you first start, we've got to get over that thing of not being great at something straight away. Just because we're an adult doesn't mean that we're professional at every single job in life. Like, I can barely throw and catch, if I'm completely honest. My poor dad spent an entire summer every day teaching me how to catch and throw a ball so I could get on the rounders team. And I did get on the rounders team. But subsequently, I have not continued with my throwing and catching practice. And unfortunately, I'm not a professional in either. So, despite the fact that I'd say I'm pretty decent at fitness stuff, I am pretty pants at sport. And in fact, playing badminton with my colleagues who are a lot of sporty personal trainers, of which I'm not, I mean, they had to really help me on the badminton to the point where I got put with the best player there so that she could basically play for me while I wafted around with my racket and occasionally swipe the air. So that's not going to stop me going again, by the way, because I had a very lovely time. But this is the thing. Just because we're good at one thing doesn't mean that we're good at something else. And it's actually quite nice sometimes to start from scratch and try something completely different so that we get to try a new skill. We learn something different. Maybe it's going to open our mind to other stuff that we might enjoy. So do give things a little whirl. But if you are doing dance fitness or indeed any cardio stuff, you can think about how much physical effort you're putting in to improve your performance. So for a lot of people, maybe we do things that we can kind of make it easier on ourselves. So therefore we're not getting as good a workout. And it works the same with resistance training, but in a slightly different way. So in resistance training, you know, when you go and you're doing, like, let's say we're doing a bicep curl, for example, nice and simple. You're doing a bicep curl, it gets a tiny bit burny in the bicep, and you think, oh, that'll do. And when in fact, you could probably have done another 25 million reps, but you just stopped because you thought it was enough. It's a bit like that in any cardio workout. So if you're like, oh, yeah, that feels, it's a tiny bit harder than walking, that'll do, then it's probably not enough, because we probably need to challenge ourselves and think, how could I make this harder? And in a class, obviously, you are restricted by the tempo of the music. So, for example, if you're running, sprinting, you run sprint faster and you use more power through your limbs. That's probably the way that you change the intensity of what you're doing. But in a dance fitness class or aerobics class, you can't move faster because you have to still be in time with the music. So how do we do it? We do things like we're using full extension through our arms, making sure we do the traveling, that we're really using all of our muscles when we do the moves rather than keeping our arms like relaxed and floppy. We use the power through our chest, through our back, through our shoulders, so that we are able to hit that move in the time and it within the tempo of the music. The same with like things like a knee raise, for example. If you do it flaccidly, you're not going to get your knee all the way up in time, in time with the music. Whereas if you do it with power, it will happen. But if you don't, if you like do it flaccid, like, oh, so relaxed, I'm just going to see if I get my knee a bit off the floor, then obviously you're going to get half a knee raise in rather than the full rep, if that makes sense. So it's only when we start to use our power that we're able to get the full move in the time span of that tempo of music. So even if you're not a professional dancer, which I'm sure most of us aren't, we're going to perform it like we are, because the performance energy is going to help you with that extension through your moves and taking up space in the room. So we want to take up space. We want to really throw ourselves into it. Obviously, I know you have to watch what's going on and make sure you get the choreography. But when we know it, we're going to use that power to really pick things up. And yes, it is easier for some people than others, because some people are genetically predisposed to move faster. Some people are genetically predisposed to like be stronger, lift heavier stuff. We have different muscle fiber types in our bodies, and some people are just quicker than others. That doesn't mean that you can't be quicker for you. It isn't a competition about who's quicker. We're not running a race. We're not getting paid to be better than the person next to us. No one gives a shit about any of that. You just put your best foot forward and put energy in that makes you feel like you're working hard. And that is a massive scale, depending on one, where you are in your fitness journey, and two, whether you're carrying an injury or coming back from a break, all that kind of stuff. So how we feel is the most important thing. So if you feel like you're putting a lot of effort in, then that's what you want. Obviously, we don't want to put in so much effort that we're sick in a bin, because that's ridiculous. It's a dance fitness class. It's supposed to be like moderately intense, maybe a tiny, occasionally vigorous in some songs and in some concepts. So like club size can be quite vigorous in the middle point of the class. But for the most part, it would be like moderate, maybe, yeah, occasionally vigorous. So we're not we are not trying to do 75,000 burpees and throw up in a bin. That's not the point of the class. That's not fun for the people that are in there. And in fact, we don't really need to push that point anyway. So what we're trying to do is stay where we feel like we're working somewhere out around a 7 to 8 out of 10, 10 being chased by a human eating bear. So we want to push it up there, but we don't need to feel like we're literally going to cry while we're doing it. So somewhere in the middle of too easy and too hard. Okay, so I am going to stop talking, because I do think that I might have said everything that I wanted to say. And I told you it was going to be nice and short today. But yeah, basically, try something new, get your heart rate up, try and do it 2 to 3 times a week if you can. Maybe more if you love it, but we don't need to go too well for it. We don't need to do tons and tons of cardio to get the health benefits, but 2 to 3 times a week, would be fab, especially if you're doing a class. So, like, an hour's class and a couple of shorter ones, brilliant. If you're getting that pulse rate up, that's all that really matters. Likewise with running, like, it's probably, unless you're really running in terms of you're doing races and stuff like that, you probably don't need to run it every single day. So it would probably be more worth your while to run 3 times and train twice lifting weights, so that you're then able to better balance your training to reduce your risk of injury. So that's how cardio and resistance training can work quite well together, because resistance training, building up your muscle strength, making sure that your connective tissue is nice and strong, is going to help to reduce the risk of injury and to help with any muscular imbalances that you might have whilst you're doing your choice of cardio. Because whilst we all wish we were completely symmetrical as people, we're probably not. So even if you're enjoying something like running, you might find that you have like one hamstring stronger than the other, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe your hamstrings aren't as strong as they should be, or your calves are quite prone to injury. And some of the resistance training we do can help with that alongside our rehab and stuff, to avoid getting injuries and so on in the future. Right, I think that's probably enough from me. Yeah, I'm going to stop talking. We're going to carry on talking about nutrition and fitness on the next podcast. But in the meantime, if you want to know anything about any of my flex programs, hop on over to my website, annamartinfitness.co.uk, and drop me a message. Speak to you soon.